Today, maybe we could reconstruct the pyramid, but it would be so extremely expensive that no company would do such a thing. You know, 2.5 million stone blocks fit together exactly in the way they have done it there, with all these rooms. And there are not only the 3 rooms, the Queen's Chamber, the King's Chamber, the chamber under the pyramid. There are many other rooms. That all is really complicated, too complicated for a pharaoh like Cheops. By the way, it is not my opinion that the extraterrestrials constructed the pyramid. No, it is the humans who did it. All the dirty work, the humans made. But the engineering, the planning comes from the extraterrestrials. But the work itself was done by us. So how do we come to the name of Cheops? Herodotus, the Greek historian, roughly 450 BC, he was for years in Egypt and he wrote 2 books about it. And in his 2 books, he makes clearly differences between the thing which he sees, which he smells, which he touches, and the things which are told to him. And in his 2nd book of history, he says, "Someone told me that the Great Pyramid was constructed by a tyrant with the name of Khufu." Khufu is the Greek word for Cheops. It's the same figure. So only because Herodotus has come up with this name of Khufu, Cheops, archaeologists said, oh, now we have a name. All true, all the other historians, 2,000 years and about, they say, no, it's wrong. Diodorus Siculus, who was a writer who published 43 books 2,000 years ago, historian book. He know the books of Herodotus, of his Greek colleague, and he said, no, Herodotus is wrong. It was not Cheops who made the Great Pyramid. It was a pharaoh with the name of Saurit. Saurit is the same figure which the Hebrew society calls Enoch. Here we are again. Enoch was the first man who disappeared in a fiery chariot from the earth. Enoch was the 7th patriarch before the Great Flood. Now, ancient Arabian writers, you find the story, for example, in the book of Al-Mas'udi or Ibrahim Abdul al-Makrisi. They said it was not Cheops, it was Saurit before the Great Flood. But Saurit is the same figure which the Hebrew call Enoch, and Enoch was before the Great Flood. If we accept Enoch, yes, because Enoch was taught by the extraterrestrials in construction and all kinds of things. Now we really have a problem. You see, technology, human technology, needs an evolution. They learn slowly that there are hard stones and soft stones that you can chisel. They learn evolution in technology. Obviously, the pyramids were something like artificial mountains. They felt to be nearer to the gods. In my opinion, the pyramid in Egypt, the big one, Cheops pyramid, is a treasure. Inside, we will find information, writings of the time before the Great Flood. One of my friends, Robert Bauval, who is a brilliant historian, he suggested that the 3 pyramids in Egypt are linked with the belt of Orion. And the god Osiris is the same as Orion. So I could absolutely agree with Robert Bauval. And it makes sense. Orion is Osiris. Now Orion's wife was Isis. Again, Isis is Sirius. So we have Orion and we have Sirius on the star, on the heaven. Now we have some shafts in the Great Pyramid. And on certain dates, I guess it's March 21st, these two shafts point on one side to the belt of Orion and on the other side to the star of Sirius, which makes sense. It has all to do with astronomy, and astronomy again has to do with the gods. And the gods, of course, were visitors from outer space. There is no way out because they were teachers. They taught our ancestors in astronomy, in mathematics. It has all to do with astronomy, and astronomy again has to do with the gods. And the gods, of course, were visitors from outer space. There is no way out because they were teachers. They taught our ancestors in astronomy, in mathematics. They were the teachers from heaven. So the Great Pyramid of Egypt, the big one and the two smaller ones, they exist for mankind since eternity. The Great Pyramid is one of the miracles of the world. When the historians arrived in Egypt some 2,000 years ago, the Great Pyramid was already there. All the historians of the past were standing before the Great Pyramid. It was a gigantic monument for mankind. That's why all the questions come up. Who did it? Why? For what purpose exactly? I again suggest they did it for the gods. The pyramid, the Great Pyramid, was not a tomb. They never found a grave inside, not the grave of Cheops at all. So it was a heritage for the future of mankind. Inside the Great Pyramid, we will probably sooner or later find books which tell us how it was some long, long time before the Great Flood. Nobody knows when the Great Flood was, but at least 5,000–6,000 years in the past. By a technology which Enoch had from the extraterrestrials. The planning, the engineering planning came from the extraterrestrials. Some of the tools came from the extraterrestrials. The dirty work was done by us, by the humans. In my opinion, the pyramid was a kind of treasure. A treasure created before the Great Flood, for the humans after the Great Flood, for us. Again, in this connection, I have to come back to Enoch. Enoch is the seventh patriarch before the Great Flood. Enoch learned the language of the extraterrestrials. He was in their spaceship. He was taught by them. Before Enoch left our planet Earth, he went back to Earth again to say goodbye to all his children and his wife. He had many wives at that time. And he met his son Methuselah, the same biblical Methuselah which becomes roughly 900 years old. And he gives Methuselah all his writings. There must be about 300 books which Enoch, because we have one book of Enoch, and there he says, I wrote about 300 books. He gave these 300 books to his son Methuselah with the order, keep the books carefully for the generation after the Great Flood. Al-Makrisi, Ibrahim Abdul al-Makrisi, an Arabian historian, says that inside the pyramid and under the pyramid, there we would find thousands of books written by Enoch for the future of mankind. In our time, grace to modern technology, we find always more rooms in the pyramid and under the pyramid. So we localize them. Now the critics may ask, okay, if we know what these rooms are in the pyramid, why don't we go there and open it? Because you cannot. The shafts which lead to the rooms are very small, about 14 centimeters on one side. So you cannot grab in there. It's not possible. You need modern technology to go in there. And this modern technology is used at the moment. It's time that we humans learn to understand that the teachers of the past were the gods, and the gods were extraterrestrials. I hope that we find at least in the Great Pyramid in Egypt, writings. A whole library, the library of the so-called prophet Enoch, which was living before the Great Flood, and which gave the order to his son Methuselah, construct the building to hide all these books written by your father's hand. That's my suggestion.